Day.
Joining us now, John McKay, President and CEO of the Mississippi Manufacturers Association. Always good to see you, John. Hadn't talked to you in a while.
It's been a while, Gerard. Good to be back.
All right, so manufacturing in the state of Mississippi, from all accounts, seems to be fairly strong. We do have a UAW strike in other parts of the country. We're not really too much subject to that with respect to automobile and vehicle manufacturing in Mississippi.
That's right.
So it really hasn't directly affected us. But, I'll kind of start with this. I'm wondering if we possibly could benefit from this from the standpoint of Mississippi being a right-to-work state, and which simply means that folks that work at manufacturing, it doesn't necessarily have to be manufacturing. It could be any company that has a union in place, a labor union. They're not compelled to join it. Mm-hmm. It's not a requirement, as it is in states where if there's a union shop on site at that facility, at whatever that company is, whatever that operation is, you go to work there, you pretty much got to join the union.
Well, and I think you've seen that over the last 2 decades, especially in the auto sector, but in other sectors as well, in manufacturing, is you've seen these companies really look at the South and the Southeast in particular, and that's why you've seen this explosive growth in those sectors, and I think that has a lot to do with it. And look, it's really letting the market take over that part of employment. I mean, if an employee isn't satisfied with where they're working, they can go find another job, and the companies in that area can decide how they want to position themselves to attract that talent. And that's the way it should work. And to the relative effect on Mississippi, I think the biggest problem for us is the auto sector in particular is so interconnected that the supplier base doesn't, we have all these suppliers around Nissan and Toyota and some others around the state. They're connected to other auto manufacturers. So that's my biggest concern, is if you see the slowdown really impacting Michigan right now, the big three in Detroit, that's going to have a trickle-down effect, and it's going to impact the smaller to mid-size, what we like to call the mom-and-pop shops, which is a really unfortunate thing because those folks, they're running on thinner margins. They don't have, all these deep pockets, and that's what I'm most concerned with. But for right now, I think you could see our sector really holding out and staying strong. That
makes sense. I didn't really think about that, but you're right. Those of you that are familiar with the Nissan plant in Canton on Interstate 55, well, around the Nissan plant, you see lots of other buildings. Many of those are housing suppliers to the vehicle industry, the automobile industry. But I didn't really think about it. All of their output is not necessarily going to the Nissan plant. They're shipping a lot of those products, and so those are companies in Mississippi that are manufacturing. And when operations are being significantly reduced because of strikes in other parts of the country, could affect those suppliers.
Yes, and we have a company here that makes wire harness.
Pretty big operation.
They're a big operation, and they supply the big three as well as others. We have a company that I can think of off the top of my head that does plastic components, really hard plastic that goes typically in dashboards and under the hood type components. But they make that for all auto manufacturers. And when those type companies start seeing a slowdown in orders, really could have a trickle-down effect. And I'm hoping that cooler heads will prevail in the strike and that they'll get this thing resolved. But one of the things that I'm concerned with is one of the demands is the EV sector that's obviously exploding.
Right.
And you've seen some of the big three companies locate in the South. One of the demands is that those new shops have to be unionized by the UAW. And that, to me, is a concern.
Who's putting that demand out there?
The union.
The union itself.
Absolutely.
Okay.
That is one of their big demands on the table.
Well, because they see the writing on the wall.
Absolutely. And that's what they see is that these companies are shifting their focus and their production methods, and they want to be in on that.
Right.
And if they're not, they might be, a dinosaur.
Well, in addition, everything I've read, John, suggests that the labor required to produce an electric vehicle is considerably less than a traditional vehicle.
Yeah, and there's probably some of that, but it's just a different. There's a lot of different skill sets involved. So again, one of the main focuses of our association is workforce development.
Sure.
And some of these unions get in place, and they just have this legacy mentality where they just churn out the same type people. people and get them employed, well, that's got to change.
Okay.
And it's a different form of production.
Well, it just seems like union leaders are I think, looking for what really is impossible, honestly. I want to work 32 hours a week and get paid for 40. Kind of start with that. That seems to be a pretty difficult demand to satisfy.
And to place a requirement on a company that they have to have retirement and health care covered for life of them and their dependents. I mean, that's just something that obviously predates me, and it's just not sustainable in today's business environment. It's just not something that folks can afford.
Yeah. Any projects on the boards in the state of Mississippi from a manufacturing sector perspective you can share with us?
Well, there are a few that I've been privy to that I probably can't talk about that are supposedly in the works and would be incredibly exciting for the state of Mississippi. But I'll just say Governor Reeves and his team have really put together a strong showing of bringing in new companies the last few years, and that's exciting. And most of those big announcements have been in manufacturing, and they're all across the board. Whether it's the grand opening down in the coast last week of Ocean Aero, which is an incredible.
Governor was there, I believe.
He was, and that's a company out of California. We've got some great growth in the wood products industry, so we're really doing well and well positioned. We just got to keep the momentum.
Yeah. Is the association declaring support for a candidate for governor?
Our association doesn't get into that, but our political action committee does. And we have supported Tate Reeves, and we've supported him when he was lieutenant governor and as governor. He has been a great friend to manufacturing, and has really. He's really put the investment in place. I mean, he's cut the business taxes that were really onerous and made us non-competitive. He's invested heavily in transportation and infrastructure. He's invested in workforce development. Those are the types of activities that our folks really depend on. And again, we're not just competing against our neighboring states or even California or the Northeast or wherever. It's a global manufacturing market. And certainly coming out of COVID, you've seen this refocus on domestic manufacturing. Our supply chains were, in shambles. That's another concern with this strike thing is auto manufacturers are just-in-time type shops. So they get parts in and they build those cars, and the next day they're getting those new parts for the new cars. With this strike and these suppliers possibly in danger, we're really messing with that again.
Then you have to kind of breach that practice and start stocking up.
That's right.
And carrying inventory that has a cost associated with it. And that's not really baked into their financial model.
No, it's not. And again, it creates one of the most dangerous aspects of manufacturing is that uncertainty. Well, and right now we have inflation, we have supply chain issues, we've got the conflicts around the world. A
lot of headwinds.
It's a lot, and again, I think we're doing well, but we really need to focus on keeping that momentum going. Yeah.
Well, I just want to say, first of all, I knew that. I should have been more clear. Typically, associations, they don't take political stands, but they do have separate PACs. That's the common structure that we see. So, but the governor does understand that the way to improve the quality of life in the state of Mississippi is to grow the state's economy.
Absolutely.
He totally gets that.
He's been laser focused on it since he was lieutenant governor and now governor. And it's one of those things that, we hear about the large projects, but one of the things that the governor and his Mississippi Development Authority focus on is the existing industry. And that's what I obviously represent, manufacturers that are here. There are a lot of things that they do to assist in that regard. And one of the things that I've been talking to his team about is something that we've seen in another state that we work with in Utah, where their governor and the association set up a fund to actually help those small to mid-sized manufacturers make strong capital improvements to their existing facilities. So if a shop has, let's say, 30 or 40 employees and they want to invest in a new line or new equipment, they might only add another 5 or 10 employees, but that is a tremendous impact on that company. And then in some of our small communities, that's a tremendous impact on them. And one of the things that people don't realize with manufacturing is that for every job in manufacturing, the rollover effect to the community is like equal to another 2.5 to 3 jobs.
Wow.
Just all of that investment, all of the wages that those employees bring home really does impact communities, and that's what we like to see, community development.
Well, Mississippi is a good place to set up shop.
Yep.
I think it is. I've heard that working on Madison County Economic Development Authority. We've gotten that feedback from prospects. I know you know some of them as well that have shared that with us. So
great quality of life.
No doubt about it. Yeah. All right, John, appreciate you coming in and give us an update.
Absolutely.
We'll talk soon. Yep, we're coming right back, folks, in the Element Wealth Studio.